Boston College's football season is quickly slipping away. I'll explain how bad things have gotten on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for analysis, news, and details on your Boston College Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On BC is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, more Cal loss fallout. Are there fixes on this defense? I'll explain why. What they need to do, if there's a chance they can do it. Do they stick with Dylan Lonergan or they go to Grayson James? I'll explain my thoughts on that. And what's next after this loss? Let's dive into it. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $5 if your bet wins. You'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. All right. Cal wins on Saturday in another devastating loss for Boston College as they fall 28-24 at home to the Golden Bears. If you want the full recap of the game, go back to my Saturday's post-game show, but just brief wrap up. Penalties killed them. They had 15 penalties, mind-bending mistakes again with two terrible interceptions by Dylan Lonergan, one that ended the game, and difficulties on defense. It was different versions of the same issues that we've seen, where BC is finding new ways to lose games. As Bill O'Brien even said in his postgame, he's going to teach this team how to win. You now sit at 1-3. Going into this season, all the talk looking at the schedule was how hard it was. But if you were having any chance of really having a good season or a season that you were hoping for, you had to start the year off strong. I had projected that maybe, BC could win some of these games and, the matchup with Clemson would be a ranked game against, a good team. Clearly, that's not the case. Clearly, this team is really struggling at this point. And if you were to ask me right now, AJ, is this team a bowl-eligible team when it comes to the end of this year? I would say no. But then I would also say there's still a lot of football left to play. The window of what they can fix is starting to shrink. I've said on every episode from Michigan State on, this is a must-win game for BC, and I was meaning it when I said it. But when you look at every game coming up now, it feels like you got to start getting some wins here. If they lose to Pitt, if they lose to UConn, this season is in. It's going to go down as one of those really, really disappointing years, just the same as 2015, 2022. You do not need that to happen. So the way that the season has to go to get to a bowl game, if that's even an option at this point, is you got to start pumping out some wins. And the first one is going to be against Pitt. Pitt barely lost to Louisville, who's a good team. And you're playing them on the road, which dives into one of the biggest issues that Bill O'Brien's had in his first 2 years. Bill O'Brien has one road game. One. And that was the season premiere. The first game, the kickoff of his tenure at BC against Florida State last year in Tallahassee. Since then, he hasn't won a road game yet. So, yes, I'm a little skeptical that he's going to go to Pitt and win this game. But he's going to have – this is where you have to start showing up and proving doubters wrong. BC is a few plays away from being 4-0. Honestly, as poorly as they've played, if Owen McGowan doesn't drop that fumble, if Dylan Lonergan doesn't throw a pick six last week, if, Turbo Richard doesn't fumble at the one, you win all those games. But you didn't. You made mistakes. You screwed up, and now you're 1-3. So I look at these games coming up, and the ones that you were looking at before and going, ooh, this is hard, you now got to win them. You have to. Otherwise, you're looking at being 1-4, 1-5, and you don't want to lose to UConn. You do not want that to happen. So first step is you have to beat Pitt. And Pitt is beatable, but you got to clean up all this mental mistakes. You cannot beat yourself. You've beaten yourself 3 times now. This coaching staff needs to drill it into these players, and they need to know situational football enough that they're going to be able to close a game when they need to. Because if they continue to do this, giving easy points, making bad plays, making mistakes, making turnovers, penalties, you're just going to lose. So this is more about BC maximizing who they are and less who you're playing against at this point. Because honestly, every game on your schedule, minus probably Notre Dame, you could say if BC cleaned some things up and played better, they would be in this. So it's on the Eagles to figure this out. You have what you need there. You're not going to be the most talented team this year. This is not the 2007, 2008 BC Eagles. There's still a lot of holes on this team. We'll talk about what those look like in a moment. But you're in a down year for the ACC. You have Miami and then a whole lot of just mediocrity. You can still win football games. You got to be able to get out of your own way, though. That's the part that's infuriating for BC fans. Is if you went out there and just got smoked every week, and you had some of those games with Halfley and you had it with Adazio, you would leave going, you know what? The other team was just better than us, and that stunk. But we lost 42-7. It is what it is. The part that fans are having the hardest part about, and rightfully so, is that BC just keeps beating themselves. They just keep doing it. And when you're a team like Boston College, you're built on having that edge, that mental edge, that you're not going to give away games. I've talked about this on the show. And the fact that they're doing it over and over again is a real big concern. And I don't know how I'm not a coach. I don't know how they fix that. I don't know how you get yourself into that mind frame where your team is a winner and they play like winners, because they're not doing that right now. They're playing like losers because they lose all the time. And they tighten up at the end of games. They got to fix that. BC, and I don't think I threw the stat out until after my last podcast. If I did, I apologize. In their FBS games against Michigan State, Stanford, and Cal, in the second half, have scored a total of 13 points. Total over those 3 games. 7 of those just came off a Turbo Richards 75-yard touchdown catch in that last game. That's why you're losing football games. If you can't score and you are not adjusting after halftime and other teams are adjusting and figuring you out, that's a big problem. You need to be able to counterpunch that, and they're not doing that. So all of these things, you got to find an answer to them. This is where you hope their staff is they've got the experience and the know-how to get past this kind of stuff, because you can get any team and any coach to go out there and closely lose games. But you brought in Bill O'Brien and that staff to win, and it's not happening right now. And that's been a big time disappointment for the fan base. So BC football has got to figure this out. Now, one of the biggest questions folks have been asking me, I'm going to talk about in the second segment. At this point, do you stick with Dylan Lonergan or do you go to Grayson James? I'll explain where I think things are at with that in just a moment. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy Shots delivers tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost you need. I needed a boost the other day. I was really dragging. I had a long day ahead of me. I took a 5-hour energy shot, and it got me through a late night meeting, and I was feeling great. You didn't have the crash either, and the taste was great. I took it really quick, loved it, and it felt great. And I use it for running too. When I do my running, a big run beforehand, a 5-hour energy shot is great. Enough with boring flavorless caffeine. It's time to get your caffeine to flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy Shots. Get your favorites you love, or be bold and try something new on in-store and online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. The Charitable Irish Society has been part of Boston's history since 1737, making it the oldest Irish society in the Americas. With deep ties to Boston College, its leaders and members continue a proud tradition of service. Today, the society is still living its mission, raising thousands of dollars each year to help immigrants in need, Irish and non-Irish alike. Last year, their support helped a family from Northern Ireland who faced a medical crisis and couldn't cover rent and bills. You can be part of that impact. Membership is just $75 a year, and it goes directly to helping families when you need them most. And mark your calendar. The annual Silver Key Dinner is coming up October 29th at the UMass Club, honoring Archbishop Henning. Get your tickets for the annual Silver Key Dinner and join the Charitable Irish Society today at www.charitablеirishsociety.org. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. And if you have not made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day, let's do it now. Even with losses, there's still a ton of talk about, and I hope I make the show entertaining and useful as you deal with 3 straight losses. Well, thank you all who've made us your first listen, and if you haven't, do that. Now, one question that's been popping up on my social media feeds, on my Eagle Insider message board, on my subtext, people want to know, is it time to turn to Grayson James? And they want to know, is it, because Dylan Lonergan has thrown 3 back-breaking turnovers in the last 2 games, is it time to pull the plug on him and go back to James? It's a tough question to answer because on one hand, if you put Grayson James in there, you may get a boost. I'm well aware that you may be able to get yourself a win or 2 by doing that. But on the other hand, I feel like you're doing yourself a long-term disservice by moving away from Lonergan. As exciting as he was that first, game and a half, he is just seeing his first action in college football. He's going to have growing pains. Unless he's a 5-star recruit, most guys are going to have moments where they struggle. Look at around college football right now. Guys like Drew Allar, Nico over at UCLA. These guys are all Arch Manning. They're all having their struggles at different points. Dylan Lonergan should be given the same grace. Your season is tough as it is. If you're going to, if it is indeed a lost season, if things don't turn around, you need to be able to get through this season with Lonergan learning, taking his lumps, and growing as a quarterback. Having him sitting on the bench isn't going to do you anything. And if getting Grayson James gets you up to 5-7, who cares? Honestly, I love Grayson James. And honestly, he at some points he deserves it. But your long-term answer at quarterback right now is Dylan Lonergan. He's going to be the guy in 2026 and most likely 2027 that's going to hopefully get you up over that hump. You need to get these lumps out of him now. He's going to have, quarterbacks are going to have these issues no matter who they are, whether it's Drake May in the NFL or Dylan Lonergan in college football. It's up to the coaching staff to help him learn from these mistakes. The big piece that I've noticed a lot is his inability to get it past those linebackers. I mean, was it 2 out of the 3 back-breaking turnovers have been to linebackers, I believe. And most of them have been around the middle of the field. It's not like he's hitting the edges on these. So I think you should start Dylan Lonergan, but I also think the staff needs to help him out a little bit. And I'm sure they're doing things behind the scenes I obviously don't know about to help him get past that hump. But play calling and getting him passes that are going to help him out are going to be important. Now, right now, just eyeballing what I watched, it seems they're very heavy on the short stuff. We see a ton of wheel routes to Turbo Richard. We see, short, intermediate, really a lot of shorter stuff scattered with a handful of, intermediate to long passes. I think they need to stretch the field even more than that. They've done a little bit of that, but I think they need to do it even more because I think defenses are cheating up more and more. That's why you're getting linebackers looking at him all the time because they know where the ball is going to be going, and they need to get him to get that ball out deeper. So I think just, maybe Will Long and Bill Bryan, they figure out a way to adjust the playbook just a tad so that he can get that ball where it needs to be, and not make it so it seems kind of predictable at points. There's nothing wrong with what they have been doing at times, but like you got to add a little bit more spice to it. Um, at one point during that game, I was watching it. They were, you could see Turbo constantly going wheel route, wheel route, and they've been hitting it. He's obviously had some success at that, but Cal, to their credit, I could see they're doing wheel route, and there's the linebacker coming over and over and over as he shades over. So they're catching the ball, and then the linebacker's right there and smacks him. So that kind of stuff. I think you could use a little bit of variation there. And I wonder how much more Grayson James could get out of this offense. He was lightning in a bottle last year when they brought him in, but unfortunately this time it's not like you have Tommy Castellanos at quarterback. You have a guy that you're hoping will be more of a long-term solution, and you owe it to your program to let him figure it out. Now, if things turn into a giant, bonfire out there and he just can't do anything, then we revisit this conversation. But a mistake here and there, you're going to have to figure it out. And hopefully these types of mistakes start to lessen and lessen as he sharpens his skills and gets even better. So my view on this, you got to keep Grayson. You got to keep Grayson James on the bench, and you got to go with Dylan Lonergan now. And hopefully he'll work his way out of this. Now, in our final segment, I want to get into the defense. Is there any way to fix this, or is everything, is it too late at this point? We'll talk about that in just a moment. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying two phones or relying on landlines. I love how Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts, like a shared inbox, so no customer gets left hanging. See why 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get your 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got an existing number with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you will unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel, especially on NFL days. You can make all sorts of prop bets and parlays. I love getting a parlay for a game, like Josh Jacob running for 70 yards plus under 62.5. I was looking at that. And there's all different variations you can do, and it makes football even more fun. And they always have like special little deals that you can add to your wagers, like boosts and things like that always add a little juice to what you're doing. So what are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get yourself started. Wrapping things up here, this is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. And if you are an everydayer and you were looking for a second listen, check out Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono. They're talking about one of the most chaotic conferences in college football. Check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, the defense, they let up 28 points, and in the first half on Saturday, they let up 2 drives that totaled 15 minutes of playing time on the field. Now, on the other side, they made a couple 4th down stops that gave the ball back to BC, basically turnovers on downs. So it wasn't all negative, but there was certainly a lot of concerns. The biggest concern was the last play on defense when Mason Minnie was wide open because of a coverage bus and got a 50-yard catch to seal the win. BC has to clean some of this. That was all mess. And I worry that there was issues going on with the secondary because you've got new names out there. You see Marcellus Townsend out there. TJ Green was playing a little slot. But that was Omar Thornton, at least on the back end, that had an issue there. If you watch the clip, it looks like he didn't know where to go. That was a problem. The defense itself is just not, it's not potent, is the best way I can put it. You had the interception by not Bam Crouch, Omar Thornton again. But other than that, there were no big plays that caused the offense to go backwards. You had the fourth down stops, and that was great. That showed really some heart when things were looking bad. But you're missing something. And watching back, it's very clear what that is. Your edge rushers are really not winning their one-to-one battles. They are not able to, without you blitzing crazy, they're not able to get any pressure. And that's a big problem. Because what you're doing now, Tim Lewis is doing the best he can with what he has. You can't win. You can't, like last year, you'd have Ezeraku causing all sorts of mayhem, and you have Cam Horsley, and you could be creative with what you do. You don't have that. And that's not, I'm not letting the staff off the hook here, because you would hope that they would have fixed some of this in the portal, but they didn't do any of that. Well, they tried to, it doesn't seem like that's working either. You've had a, laundry list of edge rushers that have been trying to get pressure, whether it's Favor Bate, Anye Nuisi, Ella Boykin, Edwin Kalengi. You've seen a little Josiah Griffin. And the most difficult part is Quintavious Hutchins, who's had pressures, but he hasn't made any sacks. So you don't have guys that can do that kind of stuff. And that's so critical for a defense. And it makes it so much harder on the back end, because now you're blitzing to try to get pressure. That's putting guys like Isaiah Ferris and Marcellus Townsend out on an island. And Ferris, to his credit, had at least one good play, but he also had that soul-crushing fourth down pass interference. And you're going to have mistakes. It's just going to happen. And your guys are going to be out there one-on-one, and on the back end, you're missing Amari Jackson and Syer Torrance, and you don't have Ashton McShane playing. So you don't have the grace to have the good guys back there that could cover for that. So it's like this whole rock rolling downhill. And it starts with the lack of pass rush. Excuse me, I'm having a massive brain fart there. And then it just rolls into guys being put into an island, and then everything kind of falls apart. Can you fix this? Short answer, I don't think so. I don't see an easy answer for this. You've tried a whole bunch of different guys at different spots, and, it just isn't working. So you're going to either have to get healthier in the back end and hope that guys like, you could get like a Syer Torrance. It doesn't sound like he's coming back. Maybe Amari Jackson. I don't know what his injury situation is, but maybe he could come back, and that would give you a little bit more veteran leadership out there. But otherwise, the scary part is you're going to have these issues, and they're going to keep creeping up over and over again. On the defensive line, I don't know if there's a guy on that roster. You've got young guys too that you could throw out, like Israel Oladapopu. I saw a little bit about him at camp. He looked okay. He looked pretty good. But he's a freshman. Maybe he'll get himself ready and he could be somebody. But it's real early for that. I don't know. I think this defense is just going to be struggling. And I'm going to say this over and over again for the next couple of months. You may have an answer on your roster, but you darn well better get one for next year. So when it comes to the portal next year, you can't just go and hope that you can find a bargain bin FCS player. You need someone that can step up. And maybe it is an FCS player that has history, but every guy you brought in was a project. You need a more proven commodity. That's what this defense is showing right now. I don't know how much money you get for that portal, but ask for the Friends of Heights to up it a little bit so you can get some pass rush next year. find somebody that can step in and do it. So that's my last thoughts on this. On tomorrow's show, Mitch Wolf, I said I apologize. He was supposed to come on today, but he's traveling and he hasn't had a chance to rewatch the game. He needs his second watch. So he's going to watch it again, tell us what he saw, and we'll talk more about this game as we wrap up our conversation about the Cal game. Thank you all for following along. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. You can check me out on any of those lovely apps, and make sure you find us there. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button before you go. We're close to 2,600 subscribers on YouTube. I'd love to get to that soon. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell too. When we go live, we get a ton of you guys listening. I want to see more of you when I go live. I'm going to be trying to go live more often, by the way, as long as my work schedule can accommodate with it. After games I've been doing it, but maybe when, if there's transfer portal news in the summer, the winter, or basketball games that I can actually get to watch, I'm going to do more and more live shows. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you know it. Thank you all for following along, and I will see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.